Okay, so we'll get started. Little techie stuff, so it's a little tricky. Got two devices because I do want to share a video when it comes to talking about the walking part. So, um, if anyone could put in the chat to make sure you can hear me, just put something in the chat that says you can hear me okay. I just wanted to make sure audio is working before I continue. Okay, cool. Thank you. And if you guys have questions, thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Feel free to use the chat. I will keep an eye on it on this device over here while I'm talking to you guys on this device here. So we're going to talk a little bit about fitness basics and fitness foundations. So I wanted to cover a few things that are critical to any fitness program that you have or starting fitness, or even just something to revisit if you've already started fitness with your dogs. But things that you want to make sure that are really solid with your dogs, whether they're older dogs, senior dogs, even your current competition, agility, sport dogs, or your puppies. These are things that you can get started on right away when you bring puppies home. So I want to make sure to cover these things. They're very basics of fitness, but if you just do these things, you can actually make a huge impact on your dog's strength, balance, coordination. So we want to make sure we have at least these basics down, and then we can build on those when we do sports or do more advanced fitness. So we're going to cover some position changes first. So we have willing demo dogs here to help with that. And then I'm going to talk about what I've been posting on Facebook, which is about walking for fitness. It's a huge, important thing that I'm really passionate about. I watch a lot of people walk their dogs, and I walk my dogs a lot and have learned a lot about how just basic 10 to 15 minute street walks can make a big difference in your dog. So I do want to cover that and the importance of those and what to look for when you're doing those, because it isn't just a basic stroll down the street with your dog if you want to do it for fitness. So there's different kinds of walks that I go on, and I'm going to try to talk about those as well. So we'll start with position changes. So I want to cover the two types of sits. If you're not familiar, there's a tuck sit and a rock back sit. Those are very important to make sure that you have both of those skills down, and the difference between them. And dogs naturally default to one or the other, and then usually the other has to be taught. So I have a dog who naturally tuck sits, a dog that naturally rock back sits, and they had to be taught the opposite. And then tuck and then sitting posture is just really important, and we'll cover that as well in terms of what we're looking for in a sit and what we should be doing just around the house when it comes to our dog sitting. We do talk about sits because there's two types of sits. I do in this context of fitness, I do try to use two different verbal cues when I'm looking for one or the other. It's harder around the house when I'm just like willy-nilly just making breakfast and I want them to sit. I probably just say sit and I don't really care. I probably should be better about using specifically which one I'm looking for, since I do have two cues. Dogs are wicked smart though, and they seem to know the difference when we're in the context of the fitness space of what I'm looking for. So cleaner would be to be very specific, and then to always use the right cue when you want a certain type of sit. So when we're talking about sitting, I like to always sit on platforms that are narrow and have a non-slip surface. The non-slip surface is probably the more important part versus the narrow part, because there's not a lot of pre-made objects that can fit every width dog. It does get tricky when you're trying to make sitting platforms for your dog. So you can try to make them yourself out of wood and like non-slip surfaces. You can buy things. I'm going to use a Kato plank, the narrower of the two. That's roughly the right width for my dogs. But like if you have a small dog, that might be still way too big. And if you have a large dog, that might be too tight. But typically, most dogs can at least get by with learning to sit on a Kato plank. The difference, if you're not familiar with the Kato products, the Kato plank is a longer, narrower product. The Kato board behind me is it's a little bit shorter and wider. So when we talk about the two different types of sits, I have two very willing volunteers. Tabby, go hop it. That one. Thank you. When we talk about the two different types of sits, we have our dogs to know which one your dog defaults to, I just put them on the surface. And if you just say sit, you'll see which one your dog does. So if we just say, yep, sit, you see how his front feet stayed at the front edge of the board and his butt came towards his front feet. That would be a tuck sit. So in the context of fitness, I call that tuck. And if I want the other kind of sit, I use the word sit. So stand. So when he's in a stand position, and I want the other kind of sit, which I had to teach him, which a lot of dogs will default to, that is a rock back sit. His rear stays in the further back and his front feet go back to meet his rear feet. So that's the difference. Stand. If we have the tuck, the front feet stay still. So they are on the edge of the platform, the front feet stay on the edge of the platform, and the butt comes to the front feet. Stand. Versus when we just sit, the rear feet pretty much just, the butt just falls straight wherever the rear feet were, and the front feet go back to meet the rear feet. And those are the two different kinds of sits. One's not lazier than the other. The only lazy sits are the ones where like they're really like falling to one side or the other. That's a lack of core strength on the dog, and definitely something you want to work on correcting. We should, when we are asking our dogs to just sit in everyday life, see one or the other, either that rock back sit or that tuck sit. We're also looking for, okay. So you can see his front feet come forward, his knees come forward. He's sitting in nice straight alignment. Ken. So his feet are forward, aside from me being the reward station being a little crooked. Tabby, go. Tabby. Sit. Good. His feet are nice and tight underneath him. His toes aren't pointed out. Aside from being crooked on the platform, he is actually still in alignment with himself. So knees are forward, toes are forward. They typically fall in line behind the front feet. They don't have to. It depends on your dog's structure, on how well they can sit. And then again, how tuck they can be is also related to their length of back. So if you imagine a corgi can't sit with their front feet touching, or their rear feet touching their front feet. Their length of back is just too long. That doesn't elicit a good sit. So we have to keep that in mind, that a dog with a longer back might not be able to tuck nearly as far, but they still can tuck some, versus just always falling back onto their butt and doing a rock back sit. So those are the two different types of sits I wanted to make sure to cover. Training the two. If you already have a tuck sit, that's definitely a lot easier, because a rock back sit stand, you're just putting pressure on the dog. So you're standing, stand, and then you're just putting pressure to have the dog stand, lean away from you, or sit back away from you. So it's a little easier to teach because it's just pressure based. So we have the dog in a stand position, and we just push into them and they pop their butt down. And that's how you teach the rock back sit if you have a tuck sit. And then vice versa, if you already have rock back sit and you want to teach a tuck, what I do is I put them on a platform like this. I pull them forward, having them keep their feet so a taller as the tallest platform you can come up with. And then I ask for their sit. Sit. Good. And so at this point, I'm not differentiating the cues if the dog is new to them, because I'm just trying to get the behavior, and I'm using what they already know, which is sit, meaning tuck your butt, stand. So if I have a rock back sit, the dog knows that means just to tuck their butt in, and I'm trying to teach the tuck, sit, stand. I'm going to pull them forward, and I'm still going to use their sit cue. Excuse me, I don't thank you. Sit. And you're going to pull them. You might even need to manipulate their head location. So too low, it's going to be too hard. So nice high head, stand. So I'm keeping his head up so he can shift his weight onto his shoulders. Sit. Good. And I'm using the edge to keep track of where their feet are. Again, I want their feet to stay on the edge. So that's how I know that they're tuck sitting and not doing one of those half tucks, half rock back. So those are your two types of sits. Again, rock back sit, I call just sit, and if I want to tuck sit, I say tuck. So then I transfer the cue once we get the behavior down pretty nicely. So then I was going to cover downs and stands real quick. I just mentioned briefly online yesterday about stands, so it's just a quick little thing. If you don't have a proper stand on your dog like this, I like to teach it on two separate objects. Get off. So I teach this to puppies right when they come home. I set up two blocks about the length of my puppy, and I just play a game where we're just recalling and teaching them to stand. Good. So I'm just tossing cookies and recalling them in front of me. So I'm doing all of this right in front of me. So the dog, whoops, yeah, naturally wants to come into that position. So then it's pretty easy. They're going to naturally find this distance as long as your spacing is right. They're going to get their front feet and their rear feet somewhat in alignment. Some dogs will refuse to put their rear feet on. You might just need to change the size of the rear foot target. If maybe the front one is easy for the dog and the rear is hard, just make the rear bigger. So maybe use your Kato board. That's a really big target. That's really hard for them to miss. So they get the concept of you toss the cookie, they come in and they're standing in an object, and then you can put a cue on it and then teach stillness. So with stillness, I teach them that they have to stand on that block and be still, and then that is stand. When they're no longer offering positions, they're not getting off and on, and that we can use this now to then go from a sit to a stand, a down to a stand. So it is important that you teach a stand cue in your fitness basics, because otherwise position changes are really hard if you don't have this neutral standing position. It's also important for doing posture evaluations and just general getting used to pieces of equipment. It's good that if your dog could just stand and relax on something and not be all wiggly and offering things. So I play the game of it's your choice, open hand, closed hand, while the dog is standing there to get them to understand that the hand is only open if they're still, and then they'll get cookies from it. The hand closes, the treats go away when they start moving around too much. And so they have to offer coming up and standing and being still on the blocks. Build your duration slowly over time. So that's just your basics to stand. Off, buddy. Good. And then I mentioned online, I have 3 different down cues for my dogs. Ken, go hop it up. Tabby, come. Ken, Tabby, come. Tabby. So I'll start with the dog who actually has those cues pretty well down. Stand. So from a standing position, we have just a regular down. When I say down for my dogs, I expect them to be in a nice straight sphinx down where their knees are still nice and parallel to their body. Down. Good. Their feet are tucked. Everything is pointing forward. Thank you. And this is what I would expect when I say down. I don't want them on either hip. I don't want them on their side. This is a verbal down for my dogs. So if I want them to be able to relax, I won't cue down. And if I want to change their position from this kind of down and give them permission to go into a relaxed state, I will give them cues for that. So then we have take a break, which is just going there down. Take a break. Take a break. Thank you. They're allowed to just go on a hip, either hip that they want. Take a break. We use this like if we're in a class or something, and maybe I'm talking to an instructor, and I want them to just have permission to relax and not have to stay in this perfect down. I would tell them take a break. They're allowed to then go onto their hip, whatever hip that they choose, and kind of chill out there. They could lay down further if they wanted to at that point. They have permission as long as they stay down on the ground. And then I have down the last one that I use most often, and it comes very in handy with fitness, but also with, thanks, Kevy, when it comes to like canine healthcare. So, it helps with doing their nails. It helps when they go and get a chiropractic adjustment when they get a massage, if they could lay on their side. So Tabby does it really nicely. He lays on his side, on your side. Good. On your side. Good. So being able to lay still on their side is really important. So that's a separate cue for my dogs to be able to lay there on their side. I can pet them, manipulate them, stretch them. They can get an adjustment, get their nails done in this position. I also have a cue for them to switch sides. Switch. Other side. Other side. Other side. Hey, other side. Thank you. Good. A little dramatic that time, but basically it gives them a chance to understand that they can do both sides. Other side. There we go. That was much better. Good job. And just like with other things, dogs have a preference. So there's one side. Take a break. On your side. He does prefer to lay on that side. If I do say to lay on his side, and then other side. Which side? Other side. Good boy. And I just cue the other with pointing. So that's kind of the 3 down positions, as I call them. The take a break and lay on your side aren't as critical for maybe your fitness exercises, but I definitely think the laying on your side is important if you do take your dog for a massage or chiropractic. So I do like to teach those, and I can cover that real quickly with my not as well trained dog. Tabby does these quite well. It's something he really enjoys doing. We spent a lot of time with it. I do a lot of it while we're at the vet office, just because it's something to keep them busy. Tabby, go hop it up. Come. Tabby, hop it up. So when I do start teaching it, I usually use a mat. So it's dedicated space. So they're not just doing it on the floor. Sometimes depends on the floor you have. Dogs might not like it. But I start with this is a luring thing. It's just like teaching your dog to roll over, except for you're stopping. If you've taught your dog to roll over, you might get some rollovers, and then you're just going to kind of capture the in between. You lay on your take a break. We'll start with take a break. So with take a break, it's just a higher head, trying to get them to shift onto their hip. Good. And some dogs do that more naturally. These dogs being in their working space down here in their fitness area, they are less inclined to want to take a break. It's something we use a lot when we're out and about. Maybe we're at a restaurant or a cafe or somewhere where the dogs are out and I want them to relax. I will tell them there, and they seem to understand it better in that context than they do in this context. Because I very rarely use that word in this space because this is our working space. And so, good. I'm getting a little bit of mauling of my hands, so I do have to do a little reminder of it's your choice. Good. We have very excited demo dogs tonight. Good. So that's how I would just start teaching it. You can use a lickier treat, something that they can chew on and nibble so they can stay in position. You can try to deliver multiple treats quickly while they're here. Good. And then get them out, just release them. Okay, good. Not you. Happy, go. So then to go all the way to their side, the lower the head is better. And then you're just putting pressure on them. Yes, good. You lay on your side. You lay on your side. Where's your side? Good. 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 Again, the dogs that roll over might offer rollover. Can you lay on your side? Like that. But he has learned to start coming back that I'm not rewarding a rollover. On your side. On your side. Oops. On your side. And then again, I am working on duration. So as you saw with Tabby, he can lay there for a decent amount of time without getting a reward. This one is still learning. He offers the behavior and then wants to bounce right back up, and I don't even have a chance to give him a treat. So he is learning duration for the behavior. So we can, again, go back into a lure. Good. Good. Nope. Yes. Good. And try to get as many treats in while they're in that position. Good. Yes, that's better. Good. And try to get that release word in before they get out of the position. They start to understand that it is a duration behavior. So I do try to sneak that okay in when I can. It is tricky with the dogs that move fast. Good. Good. Okay. Good. Good. And I don't use clickers for behaviors like this. Anything that requires duration, the click usually ends the behavior. So I don't want to use a clicker. You can, depend on how you operate your clicker. For me, it's a duration, it's a behavior ending mark, so I don't want to use it. Yes. Good. That's better. Oops. Nope. So again, I'm playing a little bit of It's Your Choice to try to get duration on the side. You lay on your side. Good. That's much better. Okay, good job. So a little bit better that time. So it just takes a little practice. It is something I lure. Once I get it lured into position, I can get some duration of them holding it, then I can add a cue to it. So those are your 3 downs. The typical down, if your dog doesn't have that kind of nice straight down, again, get them on a nice narrow platform where they can lay down. They definitely need a stand cue to learn a proper down. Down. I don't teach a down from a sit because sit down. It just creates this kind of like fall down, doesn't engage their core. I very rarely ask for my dogs to down from a sit. I know it's a trick that people use called like puppy push-ups, I think, in some of the trick programs, but it's not really functional for fitness. There is no core engagement. They're just kind of throwing themselves on the ground. Sit, sit, sit. Good. They're not really, they're kind of crawling themselves back up for a sit. It's just really not good form. So again, if you want to do it just to get a trick title once or twice, not a big deal. But as a common practice, I only teach a down from a stand. So I get stand, this nice down, nice proper down where they keep everything in alignment. Their core is engaged, their back is engaged, and all of their muscles are working in unison to bring themselves down. So teach the stand so that you can teach a proper down. And then I would fade asking for downs from sits or sits from downs. It's just not sit, sit. You can see it's just not the same as stand, sit, good, stand, sit, good, stand, stand, sit, good. As when you're going from a stand. So that down to sit to downs is just something I don't do very often. If my dog happens to be around the house and they're sitting and I want them in a down, yeah, I might say down, but it's not a common practice that I use, and it's definitely not part of any of my fitness routines. We do a lot of down to stands, sit to stands. Then we'll do some routines with where we're putting it all together, down to stands, sit to stands, tuck sits, rock back sits, all in one kind of harmonious little sequence. And that's a really beneficial activity to do with the dogs. And again, that's just using your basics, and you can do a lot of fitness with just those few moves. So just a stand, the 2 types of sits, and the 1 functional type of down. You can do a lot of fitness activities if you just teach your dog those 4 basics and when it comes to fitness. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions about that, please go ahead and put them in the chat. The wood blocks, yeah, the stand blocks I have are just wood blocks with rubber material glued on top, or yoga mats. You can really do anything with wood. I like wood because it's heavy. The dogs are less, even though he can still tip it over, they're less likely to tip it over than like yoga blocks. A lot of people can use the yoga blocks. The dogs do have to learn not to flip them and kick them. They are a great tool, and I do use them. It just takes a little bit longer, especially with your heavier, more powerful dogs, because they typically end up flying across the room. When I was training primarily like my 10-pound and under dogs, the yoga blocks were great for that because they're kind of a non-slip surface already, and they're lightweight, and they're just a great size. You can use feed bowls for stand platforms. I often use the Tractor Supply feed bowls for that as well. If you stack multiple, it adds a little weight. So they're less likely to flip those and send those flying across the room. That's what we're trying to avoid. Yeah, so talking about sloppy sitting, I have a sloppy sitter. Get him out. Cam, go, hop it up. Tabby, come. So if I just put Tabby on the flat here, even with years of fitness, oh, sure. That's not bad. It's a decently tight fit, but that's probably not normal for him. Search. Tabby. Sit. There we go. So that's a typical Tabby sit. You can see he's a little wide. Back up. Sit. Good. I have to remind him to sit nice and tight. Sit. Good. Sometimes when I just re-cue it, he instantly sits tighter. So he spends a lot of time sitting on platforms and sitting on things. And around the house, I don't care too much if he chooses to sit sloppy. My goal with his fitness program is to see him sit sloppy less. So I have my fitness program targets the strength and conditioning he needs to sit better. We're constantly reminding him to sit better. And then when he makes the choice to sit nice and tight, when I just see him sitting around the house, I do acknowledge it. I'm like, yeah, I give him a cookie for those kind of nice sits. He might not know what he's being rewarded for, but I like to acknowledge it because I feel like maybe there's a chance that it's making a difference. When I talk about length of back as well in his sit, Tabby's a good example. He is longer in the back. Sit, sit. So when he tuck sits, his form isn't great. So if he overly tucks in, you can see that. There we go. Yeah. If he were to sit really tight with his front and his rear feet really close, he has a lot of curve in his spine because he's got a long back. Yeah, it's hard to see with the black background and a black dog. But you can see a little bit more roach in his spine there. So it's just, he tuck sits fine. He can tuck sit. I don't ask him to tuck sit too close. When we do sit on platforms, I don't require him to sit with his front feet very close to his rear feet because I don't want to see all that arc in the spine. I try to find spacing. So he's choosing to do that. But when we're doing fitness, I make sure whatever platforms I'm using, he is sitting in a way that keeps a more neutral, flat spine. And that's important for strength and conditioning. So hopefully that helps talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to move on to, I want to talk about fitness for walking for fitness. And so I'm going to show a video and I'm going to talk through that video a little bit. Yeah, I think this is where the tech part becomes interesting. So, so walking for fitness, there's different kinds of walks I take my dogs on. There's potty walks if I'm out on a trip. I don't potty walk my dogs too often at home because they have a fenced-in yard to go to the bathroom in. But if my dog's needing like rehab or something, and they're doing potty leashed walks, we have what we call potty walks, where the function is just really go out on leash, stay in a small area, go to the bathroom, go back in the house. We have just general like be a dog walk where you can walk at any speed you want. You can sniff, do whatever you want. You can just be a dog. Those are great. They just let the dog just explore a neighborhood. They let dogs just be dogs. They give me a little bit of fitness. But those are just kind of like your adventure walks on leash. Just kind of enjoy yourself. Stop as much as you want. I'm not in a hurry. You're not in a hurry. Read the P-mail, do what you want to do. We try to do some like off rough terrain, kind of off leash time or even on leash time. So we try to go on some kind of different surface, something with hills. Hills are a really great way to get in some fitness for your dogs. You can get a lot of strength and conditioning just by letting your dogs run or walk up and down some hills. So if you can get to a park or to anywhere outside where there's some kind of elevation change, it's really good for them. Even if it happens to be just a parking lot, if they're walking, it's still really good to get them up and down inclines. So we'll do like what I call just like off terrain, different terrain walks. So we might go to a beach if it's off season, or we'll go into the woods. And then those can be on or off leash depending on your local area, what you have access to, and what you're comfortable with your dog. If I'm on leash, I try to use a long line, something longer. This is, again, maybe controversial, but I will use a flexi. I feel very confident with my dogs. They're not super heavy dogs where the flexi might break. Even if the flexi does break, I have pretty good recalls on my dogs, so I'm not concerned. I also go in low traffic areas where I'm not concerned about the flexi being an issue. But again, depends on you and your dog. I'm not going to lie, I do love me a good flexi for those because it's just easy to let them go and be a little bit longer and not have to manage a long line. But long lines are great as well for those kind of walk if you can't let your dog off leash in those kind of areas. And then there's fitness walks. So fitness walks, the idea is to keep them fairly short. 10, 15, 20 minutes, where you are keeping the dog at a set pace. You are watching them get into a trot. You are walking at a pace that might be a little uncomfortable for you, which is maybe why the duration of the walk is short, because it really depends on your dog's length of stride. You like this might require you to jog. So this is where you want to see your dog get into a nice fluid trotting motion, and getting outside of just the regular pace. And that's where I'm going to go to the video. So with my small dogs, I actually can walk pretty normal. Sometimes I have to slow down even because their legs are very short, little Chihuahua mixes. But with these guys, my medium-sized dogs, they actually require me to walk at two different paces. They're kind of hard to walk together on fitness walks. We're getting better about that. That's where like multi-pack household, it is challenging if you have different sized dogs because they require different fitness walks. In their fitness walks, I am looking for a very specific gait. I'm looking for them to be working and trying to, again, trot and get into a nice, smooth rhythm. This is engaging their core. This is making them work a little bit harder. And it's important, again, for their overall just stamina at that gait. And so I don't use treadmills. You can use treadmills to do this as well. I have one dog who does well on a treadmill. I have one who just finds it very awkward. So that's why I just don't use them. He's also, this one here, he's also the hardest for me to get into a nice trot when we're walking. The pace that I have to walk in order to get him into the right pace is an uncomfortable pace for me. So some of the tricks I do is, one, we use elevation. So we'll use hills to our advantage because going up hills typically helps him. And then I will zigzag him. So, and you'll see it in the video. I will walk straight and I will have him walk in a zigzag pattern. I will use the leash pressure to zigzag him down the road, because then he can walk, because I'm going straight and he's going in this way. He's covering more ground than I am. And so I can walk a little bit slower, and kind of keep up with him and get him into his pace or his trot and out of his pace doing that. So that's just teaching him that leash pressure means come this way or go that way. I mean, if you're familiar with horses, it's the same thing with guiding a horse. It's just I use their harness and then leash pressure. So it took a little bit to get him used to it, but it was pretty easy once he understood the concept. So yeah, if you have bikes or again, or if you're a runner, great. The biggest thing is making sure you're keeping at the proper pace and you're watching your dog's gait. It's really important to understand your dog's gait and that you're adjusting your speed accordingly. I see people running with their dogs and their dogs are struggling. They're in a pace. They look uncomfortable and the person's just continuing to run. There are people who do canicross and their dogs are out in front and their dogs look great. Like it just really depends on if you and your dog are a good match for each other in terms of your speed and your dog's speed, and just understanding what you're looking for. It doesn't hurt the dog to be in a pace for a really long time. You're not going to get gains from it, like you are having your dog in a trot. So we really want to get them into a trot at least for 10, 15 minutes a day. If we can, even a couple times a week is better than nothing, versus just them always pacing when we're on walks. And that's where like off leash time, balancing this with off leash time. So like if you're doing like off leash time, letting them run, letting them set their own pace, that's great for the cardiovascular as well. If you're mixing in that, doing some hill work, doing some fitness walks, if you're getting a little bit of all of that, then you don't have to do every one of these daily. If you can get a little bit of that each week or at some point during a week, then you're going to do really well with your dog's fitness levels. So again, I'm going to try to share this video. Tech people, please help. Hopefully this is okay. Okay, so I have the video here and I'll do it in slow-mo and we'll look at it in real time to share. This. Good. Okay. Oh, okay. So I see you can see this. I can see it on my other device. All right. So this is starting with the zigzag pattern. You can see we're getting the dog, oh, he comes out of camera, so it's hard to do a little bit, but you can see that that's an awkward pace. We started going too fast. If you see how we started skipping, um, that's a sign we're moving too fast. Again, I'm going to slow this down a little bit. Playback speed. Okay. And sorry, the quality, I don't know why the quality is so bad, but so see that we're moving at the wrong pace. That's a sign that he's uncomfortable with that pace that we're moving at. So I need to slow down. Here he's just offering me a pace. This is not a trot. There he goes. And you can see him transition into a trot there. So I'll go back a little bit. So here he's not, you can see he's not even like barely engaging his muscles. If you look really closely, you can see like he's not working very hard. And then we start to speed up and he gets into this nice trot here and he's moving a lot more fluid. And then to unleash pressure, I'm going to zigzag him. Again, on these fitness walks, I am actually not really allowing them to sniff. We are moving at a nice pace, speed, that's not allowing them to stop and sniff. Their head down will not give you the right gait pattern that you want. So we want to keep their head up. We want to keep them driving forward. And we want them to have this nice, smooth, you can see their body is engaged when they're in this type of mode of, when they have the right gait. You can see all their muscles are engaged. Their rear end is engaged. Let's see. On the rest of this video. See, we're slowing down here. To see that little bit of hop, we're moving nice and fluid. This isn't the most perfect trot, but for this dog, this is again where it's very dog specific. For him, I'm looking for this kind of motion. It's allowing him, it's him being engaged with his muscles. It's keeping him in a fluid motion. I do have my other dog on here who looks a little bit better. So what I would recommend is you study your dog. What do they look like? So when you're moving them, how are their muscles engaged at the different paces or different gaits that they can offer you at your walking speeds? Making sure that you can see how they move and how does your pace affect how they move. And again, we're head up, we're walking. This is a nice, again, we're trying to go for a nice fitness walk. So we're not stopping and sniffing this grass that we're walking by. We are keeping him moving at a nice clip. So this is my other dog. Again, he's got a different gait style. Slowing down again. It's so hard. Sorry, it's very hard to video while you're walking your own dog. And we speed up there. See how he gets a really nice trot going when we speed up. The trot is the diagonal. You can see it better on him. So there. Those feet coming together on the diagonal, that's when you know they're in a trot. Again, the brown dog, Tavi, in the video, he does not do this very well. I cannot even get into I can't jog with him. I can't walk fast enough. He's just but there is like this in-between pace and a trot thing that he does that I know for him is more engaging his muscles than him in a true like pace. So that is him. Ken here, my black and white dog, he actually and I can get into a trot. I can jog with this dog. I can walk with him. He and I can find the right path or right speed to complement each other, and he can get into this trot. Some of this is just based on their structure. And so it's understanding and studying your dog. So taking videos like this, even as imperfect as they are, understanding how your dog moves over time. So I would take lots and lots of videos, study how they move, and see if there's certain things that you can do to make them look smoother, look like they're engaging their muscles and trying. We want to see that effort. So you can see a little bit better of the trot here in this dog. And again, this is a dog I can actually jog with. He will maintain that nice gait for me while he's in this. So then you can see here, he slows down to a pace. Yeah, he's a good demo dog. So the pace, same legs are going together. So this leg and this leg are now together. You're not getting the diagonals crossing as much. So it's just a different look. And again, I see it, the back starts to roach a little bit. They start to disengage their core when they slow down. And then this last video, it was something I posted on Facebook. It's about the leash. Being mindful of what your leash is doing to your dog's gait is really important. I noticed when I use these heavier biothane leashes that it's never caused a problem with my dog before until I got this dog. The leash pressure and the weight of the leash creates what's called crabbing. So what will happen is when the leash is on one hip, he starts to walk on a diagonal. You can see it here. He is now no longer going in a nice straight body line. You can definitely see it better here. So here, I put the leash on the other hip. It changes the angle at which he's walking. And then I'll flip the leash back to the other hip. And it will straighten him out or overcorrect him. Depends on his, how much pressure he's feeling from the leash. And so if I hold the leash up straight over his back, then he can walk in a nice straight line. So these are important things. I don't have this problem with any of my other dogs. It's just him. And it's just that leash. It's just because that leash is heavy. He doesn't like the pressure of that leash. So again, that's a dog I like to walk on a flexi because there is no pressure from a flexi line. And it's typically nice and high above their back. Or I'll just walk him on a much lighter weight nylon leash because the leash does create this, what's called crabbing. It's a very unnatural gait and it can create some muscle imbalances that I don't want. And so I was trying to figure out why he had muscle imbalances. And it was through that investigation is when I discovered that I was accidentally causing him to crab based on this leash I had switched to with him. And like, oh crap, I caused my own dog's muscle imbalance. And I had done x-rays and all this thing thinking there was something wrong with him internally, skeletally. They thought maybe he had something in his hip, his knee, something was wrong with him. Spent money at the vet, and it just turns out I created this problem just by having leash sitting on his hip. So lesson learned about dogs being super sensitive to things like that. So and because we do a lot of fitness walking and not just general walking, he was doing this walking in this weird way and engaging all these muscles. And again, that created the imbalance. If we just did more like sniffy walks or off-leash walks, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. But because we do a lot of on-leash fitness walks, I created this problem in my dog. So now I'm on the mission, I was able to fix it by just being mindful of his leash. So surfaces for this. Yeah, so I do this on pavement. I don't think it hurts the dog. That's why it's 10, 15 minutes. If I have the option not to do it on pavement, I would prefer, like I do, the end of my road is a gravel road. So I'll spend more time walking towards the gravel road and walking and it's not like a sand gravel. So it's not like super punky on their feet. So I'll spend time doing that, but these aren't long walks. So it is good. It's better if you can vary the terrain. So sometimes do pavement, sometimes do grass. I find it when you're training and getting into fitness walks, doing it on pavement in the middle of a street is honestly the easiest. So they're not inclined to sniff. My dogs know that there is, we just have a certain pace and, I just tell them, let's go. And they understand that that's a fitness walk versus I don't say anything. I just let them sniff. And part of that is also like their gear they wear. Typically, when they see the flexi leashes come out, they know that we're doing a fitness walk versus if they see their other leashes come out, we're more going to go on like a kind of a sniffy walk or just a casual walk. If they see their long lines come out, they know that that's a different kind of. So we'll go to like off seasons, we'll go to the beaches that we can bring dogs on the beach to get some walks in. A lot of that too, I also just like to let them run on and just really let them stretch their legs on different surfaces. I think that's even better for their overall strength and conditioning if you can vary it up a little bit. So study your dogs. I mean, that's the biggest lesson I've learned through this whole fitness journey, not only just the indoor fitness stuff that we do, which is taking your photos, your stacked photos, watching your videos, but when we do walks, taking videos of your dog during their walk from the top, from the side, from whatever you can get to comfortably, and just watching them and seeing how their gait changes over time and making sure that you're not doing anything to influence a weird gait. If you have access to a treadmill, that's a great way to study your dog's gait if your dog is comfortable on the treadmill. At least to get started, even if you just go and rent one or you go to a rehab facility and use it for a couple sessions just to get an understanding of how your dog moves, and then take that to the road and try to do it out in a walk. And again, I do personally stay on pavement a lot just for training purposes because it's less sniffy. So I don't think there's any issue with that unless it's super hot. Then you have to obviously worry about the heat of the pavement, burning pads. So just be mindful of that. Yeah, I think that's all I got on walks. So position changes, walks. And then I did have a bonus to offer. So I did say I was going to have a bonus for those who came on live. So I have a free 15-minute consultation to offer up. Basically, I give you a link to my calendar. You can book anytime you want, and in that 15 minutes, you can discuss one of your favorite training fitness topics that you want to talk about for 15 minutes with me. So running might be a little harder on pavement. I would definitely condition my dog first. I am going to say when I run like my running 5Ks with my dog, I typically do it on dirt roads because it is a little softer. That I know they're still packed like pavement, but they are softer than pavement. There are plenty of dogs that run for long distances on pavement and have no issues. I think it's just something to build up to. I wouldn't just take a dog out for a 5K on pavement. I'd start, do your 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then gradually build up over time. So how we're going to give away this bonus is you have to be ready. So if everyone's listening, because you're going to have to put something in the chat, and it's going to have to be the first person to put something in the chat. So I'm going to give you a second to find the chat. If you're on your phone, if you're on your computer, so I'm going to make it fair. So I'm going to just draw this out a little bit so everyone can find the chat of the Zoom. All right. So you ready? What are my 2 cues for the different types of sits? Oh, someone was so fast. Holy cow. Good job. Good job. So it looks like the first person is Sam. So congratulations, Sam. I have your email from registering for the event. So I will send you an email with a link to book a free 15-minute chat with me. Again, we can talk about any fitness chat that you want, fitness topic that you want in that 15 minutes. We can do demonstrations, do an exercise, whatever you'd like. Free 15 minutes, up to you. So I appreciate you guys joining. I am going to send out this as a recording. That's fine. We can wait till you get your puppy. So this will be a recording for you guys. I will send it out to your emails that you've registered with so everyone can rewatch this if they want. If you're following along on my Facebook page, I do have some really good stuff coming up related to fitness. I'm going to be offering a fitness basics follow along group for a pretty low cost. If you want to just start from zero, I have a dog going through rehab. So we're going to be using him, and we're going to be starting basically and showing you what it's like to either bring a dog back from injury, bring a dog back from a break, and start with like truly the basics and what that's like. Because I have another dog who's going to be having some surgery and needing to follow the same protocol. So that's going to be coming up. If you're really interested in more about basics and being part of a group where we really take a deep dive into basics, you're going to take a look at my Facebook page and you'll be able to follow along for that. And then just always offering new things in the new year. So keep an eye on the Facebook page, and there'll be more of these as I'm, ever ramping up, and got to come up with something like the 31 days last year. The 31 days of equipment was super fun. So I'm trying to think about other things. So if you have any things you want me to talk about, you'd like more webinars like this, feel free to shoot me a message on my Facebook page. the more requests I get for certain topics, the more I can put together something like this and get you guys some free information whenever you guys need. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will get you guys this recording as quickly as I can, as soon as everything processes. And hope you guys have a great holiday, and we'll talk to you later.